What is up, everybody? Welcome to or welcome back to TBN. TBN. This is the stream where we talk all news and advocacy all of the time. Arguably the most critical part, least fun, but most critical part of vaping, arguably. I am your host, GrimmGreen, alongside with my co-host, it's Danielle Jones. We are joined today, everybody, with directly above me, you guys, you know him, you love him, his tiny lips. It's Matt, SMM. Appreciate you. I'm sorry about the lip thing. I shouldn't have thrown that in there. And then right here in this corner, hailing from parts unknown, it's Jim McDonald from Vaping 360. Appreciate you joining us today, Jim McDonald from Vaping 360.
Parts unknown?
I don't know. It just came.
He's
I felt
Michigan.
like I was. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but are you on like the Canadian Michigan part that's all by itself?
Parts unknown.
No. Oh no, you're.
No, I'm in southern Michigan near Detroit.
Oh,
Gotcha.
okay. So there are paved roads. It's not necessarily parts unknown. I'm wearing my University of Michigan hat in honor of Ken Warner from University of Michigan. I'm not a sports fan, but I'm supporting University of Michigan's Public Health Department. That's what this represents. This is my official Ken Warner University of Michigan advocacy science hat. I'm
go
blue.
blue.
All my live streams. Yeah, go blue. I don't know exactly what that means. Wolverines, right?
Whooped my Huskies last weekend.
Yeah, that's right, they did. Go blue. That's right, they did. Well, we're here today, you guys, to talk about FDA, frequently asked questions. If you guys have any questions in the chat, get them in now. You can try to mention any of us, or you can get them in with a super chat if you have literally any questions about what's going on with FDA right now. We will do our best to get you as concise of an answer as possible, but truly and honestly, it seems like there's still so much up in the air, A, and two, there's also this wild card of a nicotine tax that I kind of wanted to kick off this stream talking about, because this directly affects vaping as well as cigarettes, as well as, NRTs, nicotine gum, Lucy nicotine gum.
If it's NRT, it's not in the tax.
If it's an NRT, it's not in the tax. So NRTs are specifically written out of this tax?
Yeah, I was looking at the wording, and it basically, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but it had a stipulation that if any product was approved by FDA for like a drug or therapeutic use, it was not included in the tax.
Well, Lucy gum, I don't think ever got approved. Their lozenges did, so their gum would be taxed then. I think, right, Jim?
Is Jim having technical difficulties?
Jim is. Can you hear me or see me?
Yes.
We can hear and see you.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're back. Okay. Yeah, the NRT products, anything approved from the drug side of FDA is exempt from this. It's just consumer products. So it mentions lozenges in there, but they're talking about like the lozenges that there's a company that makes pouches. They also make lozenges. There's a few.
Is it that Lucy lozenges.
One? Is it Lucy?
Maybe Lucy does too. I don't know. One I'm thinking of is the RAI, the Reynolds brand. Velo.
Oh, yeah. Velo. Yeah, Velo. That makes sense. So it's going to be nicotine pouches, nicotine gums. These are going to fall under this tax, as well as vapor products, as well as tobacco, cigarettes, cigars.
Only nicotine gums if they haven't been approved. So like the Lucy hasn't been approved as a cessation product, but obviously Nicorette and stuff like that have.
Okay, and so the implications really of this tax, this is the Dick Durbin tax, right? This is the level setting tax of all nicotine products. Am I explaining that right, Matt?
So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, Dick Durbin's bill didn't have a tax on vapor included. They said the Treasury Department would work it out later. So the people who put this law together went back to this other bill from 2019, which had a method for equalizing the tax, and they took that. So the inspiration for this bill is Dick Durbin, but the technical details are from this other bill from 2019 that was introduced by Peter King and Thomas Suozzi of New York.
Okay.
New Yorkers, man.
Yeah. And yeah. So what are the implications to this for vapor products? I keep seeing like math and some math thrown around, and Paul Blair was tweeting about that a 30 ml bottle of e-liquid at 3 milligram would be taxed at $5, and a 12 milligram bottle would be taxed at $20.
So we have a CASAA CTA that we just put up right before going live.
Yes.
I think, Nick, you have the link to that.
I
will put it in chat right now for everybody in chat.
And
there
I'll
it
do
goes.
The same thing since it's my YouTube as well. I'm just kidding.
Listen.
Just kidding. Yeah.
So this explains it. It also has a chart in here that will give you an example. So if you look at the chart and you want to know what your 60 ml, 12 milligram is going to be taxed at, this has a chart that's going to tell you. So for example, 5x120s at 3 milligram, there is a $20.02. That's just tax. That's not the product itself, right?
Right.
This is just the taxes that we're looking at. You're going to be paying $20 in taxes. And so it kind of gives you, they have this bizarre, mathematical equation where, every 1,810 milligrams of nicotine is taxed at $100.66. And so if you do that math, you end up somewhere in the ballpark, depending on how many decimals you go, of 5.5 cents per milligram of nicotine. So you would have to take your milligram strength, right? So let's say 3, and then your bottle size, and times those two together, because it's 120 milliliters and 3 milligrams per milliliter. So you'd do 3 times 120, and then you would times it by that 5.5 cents, and that would be your tax money, if anybody wants to do math.
That is way too much math for someone who took math
Or just look at the chart
in high school.
Yeah.
There is this chart, though, that CASAA put together, and even just looking at the most expensive, 100 mils, 100 milligram, that's the DIY market, over $5,000 in taxes?
Yeah. I have a fortune in my freezer right now, you guys, in
That's
taxes.
insane.
It's amazing.
That is insane.
Now,
They
Jim,
just made it a very valuable illicit substance.
So Danielle brought up earlier before we came on, how in your article it talks about how cigarettes are actually getting taxed less because they go off of yield as opposed to the actual content. Is that
right? So a typical cigarette's got about 10 milligrams of nicotine in it, but they're only taxing it based on 1.8 milligrams because, I don't know why, but that happens to be in the ballpark of how much you absorb, how much nicotine you absorb when you smoke a cigarette. So it may be that they did that intentionally or possibly not. It's hard to tell. But as it works out, for example, a pack of cigarettes will be taxed at $2. A Juul pod will be taxed at $2.25. So we know that a Juul pod is essentially equivalent to a pack of cigarettes.
Right, exactly. That's all we've literally been hearing about for literal years and years and years, is that they're the exact equivalent, even though, I mean, they're really not, but that's what we've been hearing, and that's crazy that it's going to be taxed higher than a cigarette, even though to their own admission, they're equivalents.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, it's just amazing to me. The other products are much worse. I mean, like a 60 ml bottle of 12. What's that, Danielle? Can you see the chart?
Yeah, a 60 ml bottle of 12 is $40, basically.
I mean, how insane is that?
It's unbelievable, considering, let's say, I don't know, for me, I would use 12 milligram for sure. A 60 ml bottle might last me 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. $40 of taxes. That's insane. That's astronomical, especially considering if you're paying, and this is on top of state taxes, right? Because there's some states like California and Washington and Boston, or in Massachusetts, where it's more expensive to vape than smoke anyway.
And sales taxes.
And sales taxes. And then this is on top of
the price of the product.
And the price of the product.
now If this stays in the bill, do we know when it would start? Would it be in next year? Or I know sometimes they like push these things out a couple years before start date.
I believe this starts at the end of December.
Yeah, I thought it was at the end of the year or early 2022.
Oh, so that's soon.
Yeah.
An advocate for liberty has an interesting question, and I thought I knew the answer, but now I'm not sure. He's asking essentially, so for example, liquid nicotine can be used or is used by some like farmers, for example, as a pesticide. Is there like a specific intended use, or are farmers going to be paying this kind of tax for purchasing that for non-vaping purposes?
Really good question. I have no idea.
I don't think farmers use nicotine anymore.
Oh, they don't. Okay. An advocate for liberty. There's your answer.
Most recently, they used what are called neonicotinoids. It's like a synthetic, but it's not even synthetic nicotine. It's just a chemical product that imitates nicotine for killing bugs.
Interesting. Okay.
But I don't think they use those anymore either.
Well, I mean, for any other purposes, science purposes, if someone's just studying nicotine and they wanted some, now they're paying a big tax on it. Everybody is, except for NRTs.
I don't think they would have. I don't think they would. It's just for products that are being sold for commercial,
Right. I get you.
consumer use.
I know.
Not drug products, not anything else.
Just consumer. Gotcha. And it seems to be really directed at vaping. Like, it's hard not to see that it feels like it's kind of directed directly at vaping.
And other reduced harm products, right? Smokeless, pouches.
Well. Yeah. But I mean, the idea that 100 milligram, 100 mil, the tax on that's $5,000. No one's buying that equivalency of a snus and paying $5,000 on tax and snus. But if you want a DIY because the government took all your flavors away, well, fuck you, because you're going to pay $5,000 on tax on your DIY liquid.
I don't think I don't even think they know anything about.
You don't think so?
No, I think that the people who put this together, all they know about is Juul.
Sure.
That's all they care about.
Yeah.
I don't think they know anything else about vaping.
There hasn't ever been a politician to talk about open vaping. Everybody talks about Juul. Scott Gottlieb was the only person that ever mentioned or alluded to the fact that there was an open vapor market that existed.
You remember when I talked to you a year or two ago and said, everybody might be sorry that Scott Gottlieb's gone?
Yeah, I know. I remember that. I miss Scott Gottlieb. I miss him all the time. Yeah. He talked out of both sides of his mouth, but he's the only person that ever mentioned open container vaping or differentiated between what was happening in a volley and Juul, or the difference between Juul and open vapor that adults use. He was the only one with any nuance on it.
Yeah, he's a love-hate thing, because he also is the one that first started calling it an epidemic.
Yeah, so. I know. And that's the both sides of his mouth thing. He said he was the first one who said epidemic. And that nomenclature just stuck around. And I even remember when it first happened, I said, prove it. We got to prove this. We can't just let them keep using it without proving it, because then it's just going to become a normalized thing where, of course, there's an epidemic. And that's exactly what happened.
So the way he tested that with focus groups.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Do we know how exactly? I'm seeing people asking in chat about like importation. Jim, I thought you mentioned that this was in fact like a wholesale tax. Technically, where is it that people like? Who has to pay when, and where is this getting implemented? Do you know?
It's a tax on manufacturers. But it's so big that they'll have to pass it along.
I mean, there's going to be a shitload of people that are going to order from overseas if this happens, and those companies aren't going to pay the tax. So it's just going to screw, U.S. companies. I mean, the way I see this big picture is that no politician is going to publicly put their neck out there to try to stop this, because who's going to waste the political capital on that, right? The only way that this is going to change is backdoor dealings. Like, even though it hurts open vapor more than, closed systems like Juul, I still could see some big tobacco lobbyists fighting this to at least try to reduce it, possibly, and trying to make some sort of deal. Especially because, like Jim said earlier, they're going off of yield with cigarettes, and they're not doing that with vapor. Like maybe they try to balance that out more. But I mean, I think this whole tax bill is going to pass because it's got to pass to pay for the big ass safety
Build back better.
Yeah. So I mean, it's going to happen.
There is a remote chance that Biden would pull the tobacco tax out of that, just because of his promise to.
Yeah, we definitely need to push that.
People who make less than 400,000.
All right, yeah. I mean, you definitely bring up a good point, and it's the title of your article as well. I'm going to link to it in the description. Democrats' proposed vape tax would violate Biden's campaign pledge of not raising taxes on anybody that makes under $400,000 a year. It's a legitimate argument to make, isn't it?
It's a tax on the poor. I mean, if you look at the demographics of smokers, I mean, they're predominantly poor and minorities and some, LGBTQ folks. So, yeah, I mean, it absolutely is. But you need to get a few, like, progressive types, that might speak up on that. The same ones that spoke up on the menthol ban and wanted to stop the menthol ban.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And I've seen some people asking in chat, you guys, this tax does apply to synthetic nicotine. It is it is tobacco derived. It is synthetic. It is, TFN, all of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nicotine tax is a nicotine tax. Is a nicotine tax is a nicotine tax. Yeah. So options for this tax. What could we do? I mean, there's a call to action for it from Twitter.
Please participate in the CASAA call to action. I think, did I link it already?
Oh, I think we both linked it already. Let's do it again. Let's race. Ready?
Let's do it again. Go.
There it is. Oh, I was definitely first. 100% first.
You were? I don't even see you in... there. No, I don't see... No, I was first.
I was definitely first. It goes GrimmGreen, Tribal Buddha, Danielle Jones. Anyway, that is the CASAA call to action. Do it. Do it. Definitely do it. Definitely do it.
Yes.
What are the odds?
So I haven't seen this call to action yet. Who is the message going to, Danielle?
So it looks like it is. Let's see. Of course, it's customized for me. I think it's 3 recipients. It looks like all of our House and senators. Yeah.
Okay, so let me make one more suggestion to people. If you live in West Virginia or Arizona, you should especially be all over this.
Yes.
And you should make sure that you're sending a message to Senator Joe Manchin in West Virginia and Kirsten Sinema in Arizona, who are already iffy on this bill because of the size of it. Give them another good reason to object to it.
Excellent.
Or perhaps if they want some things cut out, right? This could be one of the things that gets cut out, maybe.
But they aren't worried about the taxes. They're worried about the spending.
Spending, that's true.
Like somebody said, they wouldn't cut this out. It would be bad PR. It's not going to be. If this gets cut out, no one's going to talk about it at all except for us vapors. Most people don't even know this tax exists. And usually when there's going to be a lot of changes to this tax bill by the time it passes, because different people throw in what they want to change and what they want to add. And, people like Joe Manchin get their way on stuff because he holds a lot of weight in the Senate. It could just disappear and no one knows why. And no one talks about it ever again. Or you could potentially see, some kind of deal made where big tobacco lobbyists go in and get it cut down, to a smaller tax.
I wasn't able to watch it, but they were debating it today in what they call markup, which is where the Congress people, it's in this case the House, argue about it before the final bill is put together. I don't know what happened there, if anything. I did see a tweets mentioning comments by people during the markup debate, but for all we know, it could have.
I mean, honestly, just the idea that that's even happening around this one I mean, you're talking about this is happening around this one specific part of this nicotine tax within this larger bill that's getting discussed?
No,
Like
no,
specifics?
they're debating everything that's in it.
Okay.
They're debating everything, but that would be one thing that I'm sure people brought up.
Should be getting debated. And this is one of those things that was,
Possibly
you know,
because they want it to be bigger.
correct me if I'm wrong, but it's stuck inside of a larger bill that the majority of the public has no idea what's going to happen. We just know that there's this one part of it, this nicotine tax, that's one little part of it. Correct? It's just one little part of a much bigger thing.
It's the government spending bill.
Right.
And it's
There's
gonna be
other
a
things that are way more
bill.
controversial than this for the public.
Right.
Like the capital gains tax hike up to 25%. That's huge for rich people.
That is huge.
Business tax up from 21 to 26, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Good.
So
Hope that-
basically, it repeals the Trump
It's me.
tax cuts, and it adds a lot of spending on infrastructure, healthcare. It's basically Biden's whole agenda jammed into this bill, and it's $3.5 trillion, which is, whopping big.
that is astronomical amounts of money.
Yeah.
And this nicotine tax, among other things, is part of their proposal for here's how we're going to at least offset the cost or pay for this a little bit. So they, increase the taxes on stuff. And the nicotine
But
and tobacco is
isn't-
part of that, right?
Isn't the taxes to get people to stop? Isn't the point of the taxes is to not have that source of revenue? Isn't the point of a sin tax to make that sin tax obsolete at some point because everybody will quit and you won't get that tax anymore?
Good
Yeah,
question.
well, I think they know at this point that everybody's not going to quit.
They
So
make
we'll
the
just
argument
Tax them
that
into the ground.
higher taxes lower the amount of teens that are going to be buying those products because they're not going to be able to afford it. That's
Sure.
like their number one argument.
Non-voting,
and they'll use-
non-tax-paying teens.
They'll
Okay,
use
good.
the fact that teen smoking's been going down for like the last couple decades as, an excuse that, look, our taxes work. Let's just tax more and more and more.
Right.
Even though, no one knows for sure that the cost is why teen smoking's down.
Oh, I think we know why teen smoking's down.
Well, yeah, there's multiple, I think.
I think
Right.
it's pretty silly to say that teens can afford a $9 pack of cigarettes, but they won't be able to afford a $10 pack.
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
it seems like an
$1
awfully
is
blurry line to draw in
A
the sand.
bridge too far.
Yeah. $1. People thinking that the reason that teens aren't smoking is because it's not expensive enough?
The thing is there's so
Yeah,
many
but-
holes in it anyway. Anyone right now can jump online and order a pack of cigarettes from overseas. It's
Mm-hmm.
very, very, very simple to do it. Like, and the problem with, obviously the war on drugs has never worked well. Like there's always been, holes and ways for people to get stuff. But
Sure.
with tobacco products, especially when you have other countries that have other products cheaper or legal that we don't have here, and vice versa. In this day and age with the internet, like they're never going to be able to stop this.
Yeah, and that's my logic of thinking as well, is you can order stuff internationally from China. I've ordered stuff internationally from Canada, from the United Kingdom, from different places that aren't necessarily, I don't know, not playing by the rules of the PACT Act or flying under FDA's radar.
No, and
Yeah,
isn't there some studies, I think it was in one of these tax foundation or ATR or something, that talked about in several states that they looked at where they'd raised the price of cigarettes, it didn't actually reduce smoking rates in those states, but it did, like the black market essentially displaced, or the illicit market.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an argument made that, illegal or black market or illicit, tobacco and cigarette products can perhaps contribute to like terrorist organizations or organized crime or other things like that. So it seems to me that a decent amount of people aren't just going to stop because, there's a higher tax.
Yeah.
They may get it somewhere else,
Yeah,
where they don't have to pay that tax. But
Yeah, or forego other things. This is a thing that happens with Indigenous people in Australia and New Zealand. Is they're big smokers, and when their taxes get raised, they will just do things like not buy food, and in order to pay more taxes now on cigarettes, they'll just continue smoking and forego other niceties in order to,
or buy lower quality food,
or by, yeah, exactly,
Well,
or buy lower quality food, or sorry, you don't get shoes. I needed a
that's what
carton
poor
of
people
cigarettes.
here do too. People all over the world do that.
Yep.
If they don't have enough money and they smoke cigarettes, they'll smoke cigarettes rather than get something they need.
yeah.
And it might be their kids' food.
Yeah,
And
100%.
I'm not slamming smokers here. I was a smoker, but I mean, it's just what happens. And the idea of taxing them until they quit is nonsense. If you raise the tax 10% on cigarettes, something like 3% of people quit. And
The rest are
others-
just more poor.
That's
Yeah.
right. They just don't have as much money anymore.
But they just continue to keep smoking. And they had a less harmful alternative that was a little bit of a, I don't want to say a money saver, but it was a little bit.
That's just as dangerous as smoking, according to all the newspaper headlines.
Yeah, it is. Well, it is. There's just not enough science yet, Jim. There's just not enough science yet.
Here's
We
what
We
Not
don't
we
know
don't
the
know the
long-term
long-term- yeah.
effects.
Here's
Hi.
what pisses me off is that if the FDA had already, say, approved some vapor products, even if it was only like closed system, because I think when FDA does approve those vapor products, they have to at that point admit some wording where, you know,
Yep.
it's a lower risk alternative and whatever. If that was already out in the ether, it would be easier to fight this tax bill. You know, like, look, FDA just approved these products. They admitted that they're
Appropriate for the protection of public health.
appropriate for
Yep.
the protection of the public health. They made a statement about, you know, how e-cigs are safer and have cessation qualities, but because they haven't done shit like that yet, it's so much harder to fight something like this. And I almost wonder if like it's another reason they're holding off. I don't know.
That would be so shisty.
I hate to even be that cynical to think
Yeah.
that the FDA is holding off deliberately so that this tax bill can get passed. So then after the tax bill is already passed, then they can say that whatever jewel pods are maybe possibly appropriate for the protection of health on a reduced risk spectrum from combustion and cigarettes, and see scientifically that there is this spectrum of harm, but now written into law, the taxes are wildly inaccurate with the relative risks.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not, you know, like what you said yesterday on Twitter, you know, like, because we do get way too conspiratorial in the vaping community, and
Too
a lot of
much.
people, way too much. But you know, the kinds of things that do happen are like shit like that. There is some, you know, shady, shifty stuff that that could potentially happen. I mean, look at how, you know, I mean, we all know FDA definitely wanted to deny loads of products before they approved one.
Yeah.
Even if they already knew 6 months ago they were going to approve Juul, like, and they were done with everything they needed to do. They held off before so they could deny hundreds of thousands of products just to make people happy. I mean, that's fucking shady. That's the
Yeah.
kind of real shit that government does, you know. They're not part of a cabal that's, you know, and New World Order shit. It's
Right.
But I mean, there's definitely like some shenanigans.
There is some shenanigans. There's some cronyism. There's some playing favoritism. And it's hard not to look at the FDA's actions. Here, let's just put the graphic on the screen. FDA FAQ, let's get into it. It's hard not to look at the FDA's actions and feel like they just dismissed the entire hobbyist vape industry real quickly and then are just like, anything else you need, Juul? We'll take all the time you need. Well, anything you need. And they're just giving all preferential treatment to Juul. You can kind of see that happening.
Yeah.
I mean, the deeming rule comes right out and says
Yeah.
that the most likely product to get approved is going to be a closed system. You know, basically they drew a roadmap for Juul
Yeah.
and told the open vaping industry in 2014 is when the original draft of that came out,
Yeah.
that your days are numbered.
So, you know, I'm a little more optimistic than you guys on this one, where I still think there's a decent chance that FDA does approve a few liquids just to show that it's possible.
Well,
kinda
I'm not
think
saying
so,
that
too.
won't happen either. I'm just saying that the idea that everybody was going to get through with like cookie cutter PMTAs
Yeah.
Right.
is low.
Yeah.
And I'm all for those people doing those PMTAs, by the way. I think it was important to show the FDA our numbers.
I agree with you.
And
yeah, I definitely agree with you. And let me pose this question just to play devil's advocate. It seems like, and this is what I've been thinking for the last few years, this is the inevitable outcome of the regulations that they announced in 2014. Right? I feel like this is the inevitable outcome. We've been saying for years that these regulations are custom tailored to big tobacco. I remember saying that in 8816, looking at the regs going, no one can possibly get through this. These are custom tailored for big tobacco. So here we are in 2021 at the inevitable result of regulations custom tailored for big tobacco. It was nice and unexpected that so many vape shops and hobbyist companies and liquid companies were able to submit PMTAs, which we didn't think they were going to get to do from to begin with. But I'm not like horribly guttedly surprised that those PMTAs did not get through, because again, we kind of knew from the beginning this is custom tailored for big tobacco, and I think FDA is staying the course on that.
Remember, Nick, back in like 2015, I think 2015, maybe it was 2016, before the Deeming rule was finalized, we all made videos doing
the future of vaping
the future of vaping with a big tobacco product and stuff.
Yep.
I talked to somebody at a big company that's probably going to be approved, closed systems. I talked to somebody there like a year ago, and they obviously don't know everything, but they think that FDA is going to approve all the big dogs and closed system stuff, and maybe, a dozen e-liquid manufacturers. Like, maybe a total of like 60 flavors, like, between tobacco, menthol, and whatever flavors they approve. That was just a guesstimate, but obviously they have internal smart people that are trying to figure this thing out. So we shall see.
Sure. And I mean, I've been hearing, I have anonymous sources and different weird people that I've talked to. There was one person I was talking to who was talking about their liquids getting denied, all of their flavors basically essentially getting an MDO in one of those big MDO sweeps. But the interesting thing was that their fruit menthol that they labeled a menthol got through unscathed so far, but their that menthol that was labeled a fruit got an MDO.
All this was them
just sweeping, right? Sweeping.
Just going after low-hanging fruit, going down lists and seeing they didn't include this, any product-specific information.
Right.
They didn't include, and just boom, like, and I'm sure they did anything that they thought was menthol and tobacco, they left on. But then there are some other people that said they got MDOs on their tobacco and menthol too, on some of their tobacco and menthol.
Yeah, I have seen MDOs on tobacco as well, which I guess kind of shows that it's not just based on flavor.
It seems like some of them might have had the form or the cells filled out wrong on the website though.
Yeah, like I did hear that. Like they had a characterizing flavor when it was actually a menthol product.
Right.
I think it might indicate that FDA is considering applying a different set of standards, possibly slightly lower, maybe not, to tobacco and menthol flavors. And that's why I know a lot of people were like, it's a straight up flavor ban. And like yes, but no. Like I think they may be looking at things differently based on appealing to children, right? That's what a lot of this goes down to, because FDA and ANTS and whoever don't seem to think that tobacco really appeals to any youths. ANTS definitely thinks menthol does. FDA's unsure on that. But I think it may indicate possibly a different standard, maybe, or they're just doing it in two parts. I don't, who knows?
I definitely think there's a different, the bar is higher for flavored products. You don't have to, do any type of, randomized trial with not teens, but young adults or whatever to try to figure shit out. It's just less work.
I think that, well, first of all, we don't know what they're going to do. I still think that bottled e-liquid in general is going to have a high bar to get past the FDA just because of what they said in the Deeming rule. that if it can be used with multiple products, you know, how can you possibly test it with everything that it might be used with?
Yeah.
Right. Too many variables.
Sure.
Too many variables. On the other hand, I kind of agree with Matt that they seem to be really, it's almost comical the way they're saying, well, tobacco and menthol are a whole different thing from these other flavors, and you know, kids just aren't going to ever use that. There's no evidence of that. If there's no mango, they use mint. If there's no mint, they use menthol. If there's no menthol, they'll use tobacco.
I'm thinking the same thing.
People who are experimenting with any kind of a drug product when they're 16 years old, they don't care about the flavors.
Yep.
I mean, if there is a flavored option, I'm going to pick it. But if the flavored option isn't there, I'm going to try it anyway. I mean, weed doesn't taste good, in my opinion. Tobacco doesn't taste good. I tried all these things. None of them tasted good, but, you know, you do it anyway.
Like when you were 16 and you went to a party, if they had Bud or Coors Light, you grabbed that. But if
you drank it,
you went with natural ice.
You went with natural ice. The low quality weed that I smoked in 7th grade.
Different reasons why they tried it,
right,
and gives them all these different options. They should have an option there for it's the thing that somebody handed me at a party.
Right, it was the only option.
Why did you try this particular one? Because that's the one that somebody handed me.
Yeah.
I mean, they aren't going out and buying these things. 90% of these kids who try vaping are just trying it. They don't know anything about it. They never will learn anything about it.
No, because it'll get banned, and then they'll just start smoking cigarettes. Matt, you were going to say something?
I think FDA is also, can look at it more as like tobacco e-liquids, menthol e-liquids are just an extension of the cigarette flavors that already exist. So because they have cigarettes there, like, is tobacco and menthol damaging any more damaging to public health? Obviously not. But then with the flavors, you're like introducing something new to the nicotine world. Well, even though we have flavors in pouches and stuff too, but I think it's just that's how they're playing it.
Matt, I think you're right.
There's one company in particular, this is news as of yesterday, Charlie's Chalk Dust.
Oh, I remember them.
Charlie's Chalk Dust has not received any marketing denial orders yet as of September 13th, so much so that they released a press release on Yahoo Finance mentioning it, but that they are saying that they have all of their paperwork and tests and whatever stuff, and Charlie's Chalk Dust, Charlie's Holdings, still in the game as far as a PMTA.
They did legit PMTAs. I mean, I remember they were on the news a couple years ago.
Really?
About it, yeah. And I mean, so Naked is still in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know Naked.
Okay,
I mean, these are companies that have been working on their PMTAs for years. Some of Avail's liquids are still. I mean,
Avail's doing all of it. I don't know about Naked, but Avail does Charlie's. As far as their PMTA.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense then.
The Avail's big lab doing a lot of companies' PMTAs, and it's not cheap.
No.
Yeah.
But I've never seen one of these PMTAs, so I don't know how good their
how much they have
testing on flavors is.
Yeah.
I remember the guy in that interview, I think he talked numbers, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's something else, but it was millions they're spending on these applications. So, I mean, there is a chance that FDA's like, we're going to give them their open e-liquid, but we're only going to let like these 3 massive manufacturers run that wing of the vaping world. Now, obviously, that's not ideal, but they think they might do that and think that will keep a full-blown black market from, going nuts. But, then they're taxed on top of that. Like, if they're taxed, like, then everyone's going to go to the black market anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing
crazy $20 taxes on a bottle.
From the cannabis space, too, right? It's the same thing in California, how the black market's outperforming the regulated market because the regulated market's regulated too tight and the taxes are too much. And for a long time, dispensaries were covering the taxes on it and couldn't afford to stay open. So now a lot of dispensaries aren't covering those taxes. So It's ridiculous.
Well, and the problem goes even deeper because I think I watched a couple documentaries on this. I think Matt did too. Part of the problem for the California market with cannabis is that the regulations put in place are so difficult for manufacturers and growers to go from being illegal to a legal grow that they just stay illegal. And if you think about it, that's kind of what's happening with the FDA and the PMTA process, right? It is such a burdensome process. It is so ridiculous that there are a certain percentage of manufacturers that may just stay or become illicit, stay illicit, however you want to word it. And that's how California ends up with 70 to 80% of the market is still illicit and not legal. So I think it's a tax thing, but it's also, manufacturers, growers, producers have to have a pathway to do this, the appropriate, if you will, way. And both of those things create a thriving illicit market.
Mallory Gates said make it
pot in California for the dispensaries. There's too much pot for the dispensaries that exist. There's large swaths of California counties that haven't approved legal sales.
Yeah.
Counties and cities, lots of them. It's just a few that have actually. So there's just too much pot being grown to shove it all through the legal pathway, in addition to the taxes and the regulations, which are ridiculous.
It's too much
There's situations where there are even like legal operations like processors who process raw cannabis into oil or edibles or concentrates. They're like selling it on the legal market under their brand, and then they're moving it out the back door to the illegal market too. They're doing both.
Yeah.
And there's no way that's going to be stopped except to have reasonable regulations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like that's kind of a window into what the vaping scene and the vaping industry is going to look like. There's going to be, if these taxes go through, that might hamper that dramatically, but there's still going to be a very thriving black market. I think people are still going to be creating e-liquid, and I think people are still going to be importing all sorts of hardware because none of the PMTA so far has even scratched the surface of hardware. It's only been about liquids, flavors, and nicotine. I don't even know. I can't even speculate what's going to happen with hardware. Is it going to be easier, more difficult? I mean,
if it's not a pod system, I cannot imagine FDA is going to know what to do with that. They're like, did you test it with every ohm of coil and every wattage possible and every, I don't know. I don't think that's going to go any better. I think your pod systems might do okay, maybe. But like if people put RDAs or mods in, I'm for them, but I think FDA is going to be so confused.
I think hardware will stay the Wild West for a while.
I think I kind of have that feeling too, that hardware is going to stay the Wild West.
What will slow down hardware more than anything FDA does is the vape mail ban stuff. And it's like there's because a lot of the hobbyists that buy every mod are buying stuff online usually.
Yeah. But even then, we could still buy stuff internationally.
Yeah.
And just gamble.
Yeah. You'll see more, different, places in Canada, China, Europe, for sure. Just like with anything, whenever there's demand, like something will fill the vacuum. Something I wanted to say on the taxes part too is that, I'm not a complete anti-tax person. Like with cigarettes, it makes some sense, even though I'm not saying I'm completely for it, because that tax money goes to Medicare, Medicaid, who take care of these smokers when they're dying, right? So like you can make an argument there that it helps supplement some of those healthcare costs that the cigarettes are creating. And same goes with alcohol, even to an extent. But with something like vapor, where it's literally saving lives and gonna save the government money. Just like it's, the UK already figured this out. We obviously haven't figured it out here. But if you have decades and decades of vapors instead of smokers, it's going to save them billions in the long run. So that's where a sin tax on vapor products, any amount, doesn't make sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. Now, what about this idea that I didn't see a lot of questions in the chat. If you guys have questions, get them in. If you have a super chat, get them in. I had a question. I keep hearing rumors, lots of unsubstantiated rumors that unflavored e-liquid from some company either has already gotten through, hasn't received an MDO, has already gotten approved, or what is the likelihood of any completely unflavored, like a 60 ml, 12 milligram unflavored e-liquid bottle getting a PMTA?
I thought I'd heard that I can't remember, did get an MDO for that, right, Jim?
I got MDOs, not approval.
Nude nicotine did. I don't know why they submitted it.
You don't know why they submitted it? You don't think it had a chance?
No, I don't think it has a chance, and I don't think it's a consumer product. I don't think they should look at it that way. It's not a finished product. It's not.
Yeah, you could make a legal argument. It doesn't need to go through PMTA. It's not a finished product. It's an ingredient. Mm-hmm. They could maybe try to argue that it's a component, but I don't think
component intended use. I mean, I keep hearing everybody talking about intended use and flavorings, and that's why you couldn't have a vape shop that also sells flavorings because of the implication, the intended use.
Yeah, you couldn't probably. But I
mean, that's assuming FDA walked in and caught you doing it.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know nude nicotine, and I don't know the people there or what they were thinking about. Maybe they submitted like 2 strengths in 2 sizes to see what would happen.
Sure.
And have other stuff that hasn't. I don't know, but I don't think. First of all, if you're a DIYer, you're going to have a merry time getting the stuff shipped to you right now.
Right.
Yeah, I think nicotine is like impossible to get now.
It is.
Yeah. So I don't think it's going to matter for those nic companies. The ones that are big enough to sell wholesale are the ones who are going to, probably survive. I'm not saying the small ones won't. I don't know that, but it's the guys who are selling it by 55-gallon drums that are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're a vape shop, I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this, because a lot of people talk about nicotine shots or doing flavor shots. I think you're better off in this instance, as far as getting away with it, doing 0 milligram flavored e-liquid, which has been established does not need a PMTA. I know there's still some argument.
It's technically not a covered tobacco product.
Yeah.
It's still a tobacco product under FDA jurisdiction, but it's not covered.
So I think if a shop went that route of 0 milligram flavored with nic shots separately,
just the short film model,
that would be the way to go, as opposed to doing flavor shots.
That's interesting. Also, Danielle, for my clarification, covered versus non-covered tobacco product, is just that what the FDA has jurisdiction over?
Well, yes and no. And Jim, you can jump in here if you remember this better than I do. But so there's like this giant umbrella of anything that is regulated by FDA, right? Could be an accessory, component, part, finished product of a tobacco product. But then you narrow it down from there and you go covered tobacco product, which then has separate meanings for the FDA. Okay. So 0 milligram is, I think they argue it's like a component or something related, but it's not covered, which is, they specifically said it does not need, a PMTA, I believe. It doesn't need the nicotine warning, for example. It doesn't, they actually said this is kind of outside our jurisdiction. And they went further and said if you had a closed system device with truly 0 nicotine or synthetic nicotine for now, that would potentially not be under FDA regulation at all, because it's perfectly closed and there's no intended use. So 0 nic is weird. Jim, if you have more, go for it. But I know for a fact it's not a covered tobacco product.
I don't think that those distinctions matter at this point. Because they also said that foreign manufacturers didn't need to register, but foreign manufacturers do need to submit PMTAs now. So I don't know. I don't have good advice for people on stuff like that. I certainly don't think you could sell flavored zero nic and nic shots in the same building and get away with it if they came after you. That is.
Right. I mean, that's a pretty obvious intended use, right?
Right.
I mean, I think you might as well just sell e-liquid if you're going to do that. And for that matter, I mean, I'm not.
But if none of those are covered. Okay, my thinking is that if you did flavor shots, that 0 milligram e-liquid, or no, I'm sorry, that flavorless e-liquid that has nicotine in it would need a PMTA, which and some are already getting denied. But if you have 0 milligram flavored e-liquid and then you have just nicotine shots, neither of those two are a covered tobacco product. Therefore, they can't say intended use on anything from my understanding.
Wouldn't the nic shot need a PMTA?
I don't think so. But
if you're selling it at retail, why wouldn't?
Yeah, if you're selling it at retail, it's a finished tobacco. It's a finished product, and it has nicotine. So I think you'd need a PMTA for a nic shot. You wouldn't need one.
Would you just vape the nic shot by itself?
Yeah, but
I think that's not.
Comes to the
is that just semantics?
That's not their definition of a finished product. I personally, who am not a lawyer and don't listen to anything, but I personally think that when they say finished tobacco product, they simply mean something that is sold at the retail level. So if I, a random consumer, not a business, not a manufacturer, can go purchase this off the street, that is finished because it can be in my consumer retail hands.
A consumer can buy unfinished stuff. You know, you can buy VG and that could be considered unfinished, right? I mean,
I think it would be a finished product if you were selling it in a retail store.
I think that's what they mean by finished, is that it's retail purchasable.
Wow.
We need to have a lawyer on here.
We probably do. Lawyer on here. We're wildly speculating and making some claims that maybe we shouldn't be making. I'm just kidding, but none of us are lawyers.
Yeah, not advice.
I hope no businesses take advice from us.
Yeah, no, don't do that. I'm not a lawyer. None of these people are lawyers. Also, I hope I'm wrong. I don't know, but I would be concerned. And in your model, Matt, I feel like the nic shot would potentially need a PMTA.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. For a while,
Abdul in chat agrees with me, so I'm with Abdul. He said nicotine shot and 0 would not be a finished product.
Is he a lawyer?
Are you a lawyer? Yeah. Oh, are you a lawyer, Abdul?
Abdul, are you a lawyer?
Please say yes. Yeah.
So let me point out one more thing here. Most lawyers don't know this stuff either.
I mean, isn't a lot of it like we think this is what they mean, but we're not really sure. So let's wait and see if we get in trouble. Like, I don't know.
I mean,
that's what a lot of this feels like.
Oh, I froze.
Let me hang. While Jim's frozen here, I'm gonna jump to some of these super chats that popped in. Matt Sinister said today we vote to recall of we vote to recall of Gavin Newsom. I voted to recall him, but I wrote in your name, Nick, to replace him. Damn right, Governor GrimmGreen. I should have ran a campaign. I should have ran a campaign during the Newsom recall.
Did you see who got on the ballot? Okay, I would have voted for you over the guy that said search YouTube. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, search YouTube for yeah.
Or the guy whose description. Are you ready for this? His the place tangent. The place where you write out your whole, your little manifesto of why someone should vote for you in the official voter guide that comes with our ballots, right? Mm-hmm. This dude wrote, "Love you."
Maybe that's all it takes.
That's it. And I think it was a you, not even the spelled out word. Well, love you.
Look, John Lennon said all you need is love, so.
I feel like he was like, I bet you $50 I could get on the ballot. And then he did it.
And nobody's going to vote for him. Barbara Burgess, very gracious of you. Curious if you guys think the FDA gets one e-liquid approved, then that will open the door for flavors sometime down the line. Oh, and love you, Grimm. I love you too, Barbara Burgess. I had this question as well. If an e-liquid bottle gets approved through a PMTA, appropriate for the protection of public health, where does the standard equivalency sort of fall in that jurisdiction? Does that open the floodgates for other shops, other liquid manufacturers to go standard equivalency,
oh,
much faster than
substantial
PMTA?
Equivalency?
Yeah, sorry, substantial equivalency. Sorry.
No, substantial equivalence only applies on tobacco products to stuff that was made before the 2007 grandfather date, and it only applies. Same manufacturer.
We will never get an SE for vapor products because it won't apply. Yeah, it doesn't apply.
No.
Yeah.
It's for grandfathered stuff, not for new stuff.
Now, if an e-liquid gets approved, it could mean that potentially the next guys that come along could do it easier because there might be a formula. Maybe the companies that got approved are willing to show their pathway to doing it too. So I mean, it's going to be a good thing if it happens, but it's not going to get through.
That's it. So let's say you get a product approved, your next PMTA is going to be much, much simpler. Basically, you can just piggyback off the stuff that you've already used and make minor adjustments to it. So,
but it's not the SE pathway.
But it's
and
not
like Matt said, actually, that'd be quite a business. You could share your secrets with everybody else.
Yeah, pay me, and I'll do a PMTA that definitely will go through.
You will get a PMTA. You will get a PMTA.
I mean, the FDA also has to know that any products they approve, like they have to, that's the new standard for that PMTA. So if they, do approve a e-liquid company, and like they're going to have to approve others if they do all the exact same shit. Which can open floodgates.
If they meet the same standard, that's true. Although go Jim.
You guys are too polite. I'm going to go. Here's the thing. No, I'm just kidding. Now, Jim, go.
Yeah, Jim, go.
Oh, it was frozen, but now I'm back, I guess. So the FDA can always say that we approved this PMTA and we're not going to approve this one because of some minor, tiny difference in flavorings.
Yeah, that's true.
Or something like that. So they'll always have an out if they don't want to approve something. So, I mean, our goal needs to be to work. I mean, I'm not a business owner anyway. I don't own a vaping business in the United States. And since I don't, I can say whatever I want, and I can work behind the scenes to try to change the whole mindset about vaping. And that's what needs to happen. What we need to be aiming for, and I'm not telling you this is going to be easy, what we need to be aiming for is 5 years, 10 years from now, getting a PMTA is as easy as getting a medical marijuana card in California. That needs to be our goal. I mean, you know how long the pot people work to get where it is now? A long
40 years, 30 years, something?
Yeah, since the early 70s. I don't think it'll be that bad for us.
It can't possibly.
But if everybody gives up and goes, that's it for vaping, I don't really care to get involved anymore, then it's just going to be 100 people doing all the work.
Yeah, and we'll still get there. It will just take a really, 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 really long time. Really long time.
That's right.
I also don't think that there is as much of a negative stigma to nicotine and smoking than there was to, let's say, marijuana use in the 1980s. I mean, I was told that as a kid in the 80s that if I looked at marijuana, I might as well have already done cocaine. It was really ramped up as a fear thing. And I don't see that for nicotine.
There's still a hate for nicotine.
There's still hate, right. And addiction, not like that.
It's the devil we know type of thing. It's not like marijuana, where it's it's the boogeyman growing up.
Very boogeyman.
Well, but it is kind of like that. People don't understand nicotine. They think nicotine
that's true.
Cancer. They have all kinds of misconceptions about nicotine.
I mean, I guess that's public awareness. And speaking of, Kevin Yum with the super chat, how do we expand our voice if it's a multi-billion-dollar industry? Then why have we not pushed back? How much is a targeted TV ad or a Facebook ad?
Can't get a Facebook ad.
Yeah, can't get a Facebook ad. Also expensive, especially if you want to sustain it, because you could have money and have a billboard on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles for 2 days, and then no one will remember that it was there because a new billboard will be there. So the ability to have a public campaign and sustain it, unfortunately, costs, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars consistently.
Yes.
A couple of years ago,
Okay.
myself, Dimitri, and Brent
Yeah.
Stafford put together a marketing plan and even had some commercials made, and they were going to be aired on 52 channels, I think. It was going to be for like a 12-week stint. From what I remember, it was going to be like 1.5 to $2 million for a 12-week run, and the money ended up backing out last minute. So the hard thing in this industry is always tried to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
And not didn't help that big companies like Juul took a lot of the market share, which sucked a lot of that money out. And Juul obviously does their own lobbying and spends loads of money on it, but it doesn't always align with our interests. So
Yeah.
it's we've been underwater, and it's been difficult to fight anything, with money for a while.
Right.
And that's one thing that people always, I see randos on the internet, no offense to any of you who are randos, but saying like, why aren't we doing
not
lawsuits?
You randos, other randos. Not
Other
you
randos. Why aren't we doing lawsuits? Or why, especially this gets directed at CASAA a lot, right? Like, why isn't CASAA filing a lawsuit? Why isn't CASAA doing, television ads and PR and stuff like that? The answer to that question is that it costs millions, plural, of dollars to be effective. Lawsuits can get crazy expensive very fast, but we are talking about hundreds of thousands, if not definitely millions of dollars. And I don't know if you know this, but CASAA doesn't make anywhere near that kind of money in a full year. Like in a full year, not even close. So these things are massively expensive. And you would have, in terms of a lawsuit, most lawsuits are going to have the best chance for success coming from businesses, because businesses can actually show damages and show, how they have been hurt. If CASAA was trying to file a lawsuit, some sort of, everybody's like class action or something, trying to prove actual harm to consumers. I mean, have any of y'all died from not being able to access your vape stuff? I mean, that's with the level, that people need to be able to prove. That's why it's for companies. I'm just going to run on a tangent.
Part of what's awesome about this industry is also part of why it's so hard for us to fight this. And it's because we have thousands of companies. There's way more companies in this industry than other industries, and trying to get all those people on board and donating to, a cause or whatever, we've never been able to get probably more than like a couple % of the whole industry to put money in. And there's been some companies that have put loads of money in. So, not trying to throw shade on them. It's just, it's not like if we only had 10 vape companies in the whole country, then it'd be really easy to start a trade organization, get them all to pay their dues and be super hyper focused and organized. But it's very difficult with this Wild West, sort of industry that we have.
And that was a huge problem, I think, there was too much Wild West, because people were coming in and we saw it over the years, Matt, like all of 2015, all of 2016 just flooded with companies that made a bunch of money, and then now everybody's gone. It was like a little gold rush of people who didn't care about the future of the industry, didn't care about the community at the time, just wanted to make their money and get out, and then that's what we did.
I mean, there was a time, and I kicked myself for not doing it, but you're working harder at it. But there was a time where the cost of entry was so low. So there's guys that came in with $500 to $1,000, started an e-liquid company, and turned it into a $5 million a year company. And then they saw, oh, shit's getting a little.
Here comes the regs. Let's get out.
I'm going to take my millions and I'm going to go on to freaking cannabis or CBD or slinging shoes. What does the freaking Candy King guy do? He's like selling shoes on the internet now or something.
Shoes?
Yeah. Like he added me to one of his Facebook groups. He's just got like these raffling high-end shoes and shit.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. The cost of entry was real low, and there was, including myself, a lot of very inexperienced business people who had one killer product, and now they're suddenly 25-year-old millionaires who don't
With
you know,
Lambos.
with Lambos driving around Southern California. It's crazy. And then that's it. And things got scary where it's like, oh, this might be taken away. Good thing I have my millions of dollars. Smell you later. Hope everything works out. Do you think we'll see an influx of when vaping becomes legitimized inevitably of like responsible business owners?
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, like, it depends on FDA enforcement. Like, if these companies just, let's say everyone goes to like synthetic nicotine or something, and FDA is only like busting a couple of companies a year, then you're going to see like some of these kind of bottom feeder grifter types, and they're going to come back for the next boom. Because if you remember how 2016 we all said the sky was falling, it's ending, vaping is dead. Bunch of people went out of business.
I never said vaping was dead.
No, I mean,
I just want my record
you're
to show
right.
that.
I was okay. I shouldn't have put it that way. But anyway, we all thought we were fucked.
Yeah.
No more new products, right? That was nobody's
no more
going to
new
put out
products.
any more new products.
I remember indoor
many
smokers. He's
so
like,
many
okay,
companies went out of business, and then when everyone realized FDA is not even enforcing this shit, 2017 is when the Candy Kings and all those big ass Cali companies really, started popping up and getting massive, and they filled the vacuum. You could potentially see that happen in this situation if FDA enforcement sucks.
Yeah.
And that's every industry, right? Look at CBD, look at hemp, look at kratom. I mean, you've always got these guys who are like, oh, this is like kind of low cost to entry and like it's not super regulated or we're like flying under the radar. Let me get in here. Like, that's any industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then it gets shaken out by regulators so that, shake off the blanket so that the big companies can come sit on the blanket, and then whatever's left, maybe there'll be like a craft beer brewery left after Anheuser-Busch takes over the whole market. Maybe there'll be a craft e-liquid company left over after Altria, PMI, Juul sit their big companies on the blanket.
The craft brewing industry is like a dream for vaping.
That's kind of what I picture it as, though. I mean, in the future, my idealized version. Yeah. I see no reason why it can't be.
When I first turned 18, which was the legal age to drink, there was no craft brewing, really.
Right.
This is 1977. So, in fact, in a lot of places, home brewing was illegal.
Really?
Yeah, I read about that.
It was really activists who were home brewers that started the craft beer industry. And it's a very interesting thing to learn about if you look into it. But so there's a really big craft brewery in Michigan, Bell's Brewery, that was one of the very first to make a go of it. And I talked to the owner of that, or the former owner, because I think they've been bought by a big brewery now, once, and he told me this long, involved story. It was really interesting. But that's what the vaping industry should have aspired to from the start. The thing is, there is no start to vaping. It was a mess at the beginning, and it just got bigger and stayed a mess, and got bigger and stayed a mess. And it was never organized from the beginning. So, and I'm not like slamming anybody for that. I like the Wild West.
I love the Wild West. And it was the perfect storm of timing and the technology commingled with the beginning of YouTube and making YouTube videos and the internet culture that allowed like this sort of, subculture to come together and be a thing independent of literally everything.
That's right.
And I love it.
And I think it had some appeal that way too, right? Because it wasn't super organized. It wasn't a pharmaceutical product. It wasn't something your doctor was recommending. There's a certain percentage of smokers that are like, oh, this is like, I think they feel empowered, right, to do something themselves, right? Like we, the consumers, the actual users of this product, not some doctor or pharma company in an ivory tower way up there. Exactly. We came up with this thing and we are talking to each other and we are testifying that it does work, bro. And you can trust me because I'm your buddy who's been smoking as long as you have. There was a more realism to it there. And I think that I agree. Obviously, it was chaos. Obviously, it's been messy, but I think that's part of the charm and part of why it works for a lot of people.
It's got a very like, maybe it's cliche, but a very like DIY punk rock feel to it, and that's what attracted me to it. Is when I got on ECF and I saw people fiddling with their atomizers and trying to figure out new ways to use cartridges. And I'm like, whoa, what's all this? This is neat. You don't have to smoke? I'm in. Like, I was so in. I couldn't have been more in. I don't remember being that pumped about something. And I was just in.
A lot of that early, the early adopters of vaping in the US and in Europe also, they got these products from China that were intended to be the finished product. This is the product that you're going to use.
Right.
And they immediately started looking at all the flaws of it and fixing them. Mm-hmm. And then it became a pipeline of innovation between the end users on ECF, on YouTube, and the manufacturers, basically beta testers who were like getting all the bugs worked out of the products, and then that became a thing where, well, we're just going to like put out a new version of this thing every 2 months. But that was a while.
Right.
That was a while later,
Right.
So it's user innovation, it's the internet, it's grassroots, and like from the ground. I don't know of anything that's more like from the ground up rather than top down innovation.
Yeah, I don't think there's a better example of it. Jeffy asked in the chat, do you think a tobacco flavor bottle, so a bottle of e-liquid open system, will get through? We haven't seen any yet, but that doesn't mean no. I would say that's a question mark right now, because no bottled anything has been approved. No, nothing has been approved. Technically, that's where we're at right now.
Authorized, not approved. Authorized. So Alex doesn't kill us. Authorized.
Right. Nothing's been authorized yet. Literally nothing.
It's so tough to say. Like like I said earlier, the optimistic side of me thinks that some e-liquids get through, not a lot, but some. And then there's another side of me that, like, if we start seeing like some news stories and some studies about open vapor and fucking crazy shit happening, and we start hearing about, mods blowing up in people's pockets again, then we know that they're prepping us for the big disappointment.
I don't think that's going to happen. I just want to acknowledge Tribal Buddha. 14-year Vape-iversary today.
That's amazing.
That's incredible. I was attracted to being able to take an empty V2 cart and fill it myself with a flavor other than tobacco. Would you look at that? Other than tobacco. Congratulations, Tribal Buddha. That's amazing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Now,
14 years. That's
14 years.
Is he the first vapor?
I think he's in the United States vapor ever. So
he started vaping in like 2007. Then
yeah, that's very early.
When did you start vaping, Nick? 09?
09, January 09. It was
early too.
New Year's resolution to quit. So I went on eBay, bought a Smoke 51 starter kit for $200. 2 stick batteries and 2 little cartridges was $200. It was crazy. I got it, didn't think I needed anything else, just ripped through 2 cartomizers in about a day, and then started vaping burnt polyfill and realized I needed e-liquid, and then, it was a big learning experience.
You don't need a PMTA for blue seafoam.
You don't. You definitely don't. I guess one of my final questions here is, once FDA approves something, because something's going to get approved, they're not going to approve nothing. Right?
I mean, I feel like Juul's probably...
They have to approve something.
I feel like a tobacco Juul... My money's on that.
It might be a tobacco Juul pod.
I love the idea... who was it that brought it up? I think it was Greg Conley. I love the idea of Enjoy.
Yes.
I almost forgot that.
I think that would be glorious.
Getting it first.
I'm not saying first. I'm just saying, of all the ones, I feel like I cannot see a world where FDA doesn't at some point approve a Juul tobacco system.
They have to. I think it'll happen this year. I think it's going to happen sooner than we think. At that point, doesn't that change the conversation about what is actually appropriate for the protection of public health? If FDA is now saying, okay, if smokers switch to this approved Juul pod, that is appropriate for the protection of public health. Is it not just a slippery slope to going, okay, well then these two, then these two, then these two, then these two, then these two? Because a Juul pod is not that different.
Like I was saying earlier, that it's going to open... It creates a scenario where FDA will have to start defending vapor products. They're going to have to say why they approved it. They're going to have to make cases for it.
Yes.
They're going to probably admit that it's a lot safer than smoking.
Yeah.
And so that would help us with the tax fight, if that happened soon, obviously. But,
and some public opinion too, I think.
And some public. To my bigger point, I think it's more public opinion, because I think the person who may be skeptical about vaping now, and they see the FDA approval for maybe this Juul product, they may not go buy that Juul product, but they'll now in their head go, I could buy a different vaping product, or I could buy that one I saw on the internet. Now that I know that vaping's FDA approved, I think that's going to be a societal changing thing. Maybe.
I mean, I think potentially. Just for the record, vaping won't be FDA approved.
Right.
It's going to be headline news when somebody gets approved, and they're going to have to defend their decision.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be put in a situation where they now have to stick up for vapor products.
Yeah, they're going to have to stick up for vapor products in the face of overwhelming political pressure from Raja Krishnamurthy, Dick Durbin. These guys are crazy anti-vapors, and they seemingly want to circumvent science and the, congressional instituted regulatory process just because they're screaming in the air and waving their hands around. They're like, don't approve anything, don't approve anything.
Well, that's why all these denials were so predictable too, because they were just like softening it. They were softening it first, like, look, guys, we freaking just got rid of 1 million products, and like,
are you happy?
They're like getting ready to soften. It softens the blow when they finally approve a product.
So
also too,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick off of Matt's point. Also too, we're expecting NYTS numbers, youth numbers, to come out pretty much any time now, right? If I feel like I'm the one that gets real excited about this. So we should be getting a teaser. So they always, it's 2 releases. It's the teaser info, and then it's like the full MMR, and then 6 months later it's the full data set. So teasers usually happen right like September-y, and then maybe a month later we get so we're on track for some youth data anytime now. I would imagine if the youth data comes back and last year's trend, which was a decline, continues this year, and there is a further decline, I think FDA might coordinate the potential authorization announcement of something with that. Like, oh, look, the youth are really, like, it's going down now. So, by the way, here's Juul,
I'm just not convinced they're going to approve
I've seen a lot
Juul
of speculation
because it's bad
about
optics.
I agree with Matt.
or Enjoy or whoever.
I don't think they'll approve Juul first. I mean authorize, but I mean the.
Thank you. Alex taught me well, you guys. I'm gonna authorize, not approved.
Shout out to Alex.
When I'm writing, I always say authorize, but it's easy to say approve, but the FDA will tell you that the FDA does not approve any tobacco product.
No, they do not. They authorize.
But they make it prove it's appropriate for the protection of public health before they authorize it.
Correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's why they authorize it, according to them. So, by the way, that whole process, which is spelled out in the Tobacco Control Act of PMTAs for new products, was created by our friend Matt Myers, who wrote it along with Philip Morris lawyers and some congressional staffers. So there should be nothing that's happening that surprises Matt Myers. And yet he just seems shocked by every single thing that the FDA does. It's shocking that they would do this. So
Oh, Matt Myers.
He's the one who
Shocking.
came up with it.
Are we going to do an Occupy FDA? Like really?
You know,
blow
I
out
was
numbers?
wondering where their headquarters is. I was like,
Combine like the Mother Truck and Power
Is it-
Rangers?
drivable? Could
I agree
Could I
with
drive
that, yeah.
body bags out to the FDA? Is
Could
that
we
a
drive
thing I
body
could
bags
do?
to the FDA? Or what if we
Pull a
just...
I
little
mean, I
troop
would never
stunt?
tell anybody to go and throw fake blood on FDA employees or anything like that.
No,
No.
don't
But-
do that. Don't do that.
We
It
make
seems
our
like-
own homemade, special effect, like cancer-ridden looking lungs, like big, soggy, wet, gray
Or little
sponges,
cardboard
right? And just throw 'em
Tombstones?
and make
No,
them smell
little-
like ashes. Roll it in ashes and just throw it at FDA.
Yeah,
so
the
it
mainstream
stinks like smoke
media
and-
will
So
paint us
metal.
all as
So metal. I was thinking like little cardboard tombstones that you
Sure.
can like stick in the ground and line them all up around the FDA. I feel like you're
Right.
probably not going to get arrested for that. I mean,
No.
Yeah, but unfortunately, in this political climate, they'll try to compare us to the, January
Right,
Capitol
right. Yeah, we'll end up
What do they
getting
Nobody-
we'll
Do
end up
not
insurrectionists.
labeled
leave your
insurrectionists.
firearms and your zip ties at home. Do you
Yeah.
hear
They'll
me?
call us vapors insurrectionists.
Here's what we do. Here I'm glad we have this group think tank going right now, because here's what we do when we show up at FDA. We make sure that our message is very clear and very on point, and we have signs that specify this is not political. I just don't want to die. This is not political. I just don't want to die. Those can be our signs. Hundreds of people holding those signs in front of FDA, insurrectionists, QAnons, anything. We are apolitical. We just don't want to die.
And then there's one guy in the center. Q sent me.
Yeah.
No,
That's his
I will
face.
throw you out. I will hunt you down. Do not. I don't care if you believe that. I do care, but we're not going to talk about that right now. That's your business. You do not bring it out.
If
when
that
we're
happens, it's
advocating
definitely
for
one of
vaping.
GrimmGreen's viewers, not one of my viewers.
Yeah, definitely.
One issue at a time.
The
For the love
FDA,
of God.
Tribal Buddha is letting us know that the FDA headquarters is in Maryland. So Silver
Oh,
Springs,
Maryland?
Yeah, we'd have to go to Maryland, but that's fine.
It's right across. It's right by Washington.
What up? Represent Maryland.
That's far away from me.
I'll go to
I was
Maryland.
hoping I could drive somewhere.
We had a super
Do
chat
you
here.
think the FDA headquarters is in Nevada?
I mean, I
There's
was
no
hopeful.
FDA headquarters in Nevada. Super chat from Pam says, not to
She thought it
distract
was
from
down
the
the street.
Not to distract from the topic tonight, but for the Canadians watching, please go and vote. Defeating the liberal government is our last hope of overturning current legislation and preventing a flavor ban in Canada.
It's not legislation. That's a rule by Health Canada.
It's a rule. Is that just nomenclature semantics there?
No, it's their FDA making a rule. It's not
Right.
their legislature. The law that underwrites the rule was passed years ago.
I mean, there is. I've been sitting in
I
on
mean-
the Canadian industry meetings. It's actually really nice that their industry does a Zoom meeting every week, and I mean, there's multiple different. Yes, there is an argument to be made that if the Conservatives beat the Liberals in Canada, there might be extra pressure on Health Canada to not go through with it. But from my understanding, I don't think they can actually stop Health Canada. They can replace people in the office. It's kind of like FDA, like
Right.
Jim was saying. But they can't just tell Health Canada you can't do this flavor ban. However, I will say that if it gets to the point where there's a lawsuit, which industry has already been raising money for, I interviewed the not on my YouTube channel, but for another company that in Canada for their channel. I interviewed the lawyer that would be doing that, and he's really sharp. He already beat the government of Canada on safe injection sites. I think he beat him on something about AIDS as well. Perfect lawyer for this fight in Canada, and he laid out a lot of the arguments they can use because it's a constitutional issue up there. That's the way they view it. And he's had wins that are similar to that. So not saying it's not dire there, it is, but be optimistic that there are some good people fighting this. If it gets to the point where they have to go to court, it's they have really good representation.
Yeah.
Yeah, Canada. Now there is still there's still a website called vapepmta.com that is keeping track, I believe, in a graphical representation of everybody who's submitted, everybody who's been accepted, denied, still under review, and Charlie's Chalk Dust is still one of the few on this website, apart from other larger companies like Vupu, that still says under the review, under the review portion of it. So I don't know. I don't know if how, and Bantam, still under substantive review. So substantive. What did I say? Substantive. See, but then it says Avail has only submitted, so I don't know how up to date this website is, but it can be another resource if people are really interested to see who's getting approved or who's getting denied, who's getting these MDOs and who is.
You can also just go to the FDA website.
Still in that
they
review
have a
process.
CSV you can download.
Oh, but this is more fun and it's in graphical
There are
form.
still manufacturers that haven't had their PMTA accepted by the FDA for review yet.
Oh, like first step.
That's right. Not everybody who got an MDO even had been accepted. They went and looked at PMTAs that hadn't gotten to the first step and then went ahead and did the third step. So, I mean,
wow,
it's messed up, and I don't know what we're going to see, but you're right. All those bigger companies are still in there with their flavors. Avail is, Naked
Enjoy.
is.
Yeah,
Ooh.
Enjoy.
Enjoy still, we haven't heard back.
They don't have any flavors.
Oh, flavors. Sorry. I thought you were just talking about
yeah.
big companies in general.
Yeah,
Enjoy hasn't submitted
the
any
big
flavors?
open system e-liquid companies are still, some of them are still in there.
Enjoy
with
submitted flavor, I think.
No, they didn't.
They didn't?
No.
I thought they did
That's
on a few of them or something on their disposables or something. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, if that is possible, I don't know. I looked at the Views Alto and they just submitted tobacco and menthol.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
By the way, all the big companies except Juul, I believe all the other 4 big companies all use s'more atomizers in their pod devices.
Oldest in the game.
S'more is the parent company, for people who don't know, of Vaporesso.
Yeah, S'more is one of the oldest in the world.
And C-Cell, yeah, they are, and they're the biggest vaping company in the world.
Yeah,
right now.
They absolutely are. Well, okay, let me ask one last question here. We can wrap this up. Do you think that the big tobacco has any interest in ever, open vapor anything? The idea that we're going to have the biggest big companies sitting on the blanket, and all we're going to get is their products. They're obviously aware of open vapor. They can see how many customers are here. Do you think they would ever have any interest in doing?
I think they would if they would if if an open vapor company gets through PMTA, like let's say Avail does or Naked does, then they're going to get a offer to buy from tobacco.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But big tobacco's not going to go down that road until they know for sure that open vapor is going to survive, and there's a point in trying. But they're going to do anything that makes them money, and they want to own the whole industry if they can. So they're definitely going to try to buy out somebody like a Naked or one of those big dogs.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to turn them down too.
Yeah, right.
And so because they'll offer way more than it's worth.
Oh yeah. I mean, if
I
a company
turn that down, you couldn't turn that down. I couldn't turn that down.
Any e-liquid company that gets PMTA is now worth millions of dollars. So just the PMTA alone is worth loads and loads of cash.
And I would mention, even if you get, unless they approve hundreds of tobacco flavors, if they don't approve hundreds of them and they just approve a few or a few dozen, those companies are worth a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's look at this logically. I don't think vape shops are going to survive if they just have like 24 tobacco flavors to sell.
Right.
They're going to have to come up with different business models. But those 24 flavors are going to go into smoke shops all over the country and probably into C-store displays.
Yeah. That's where I see most of the vape stuff I run across now.
Become valuable. And I mean, I know there are some not tiny and not, Altria-sized companies like Turning Point Brands that have e-liquids submitted for PMTA. They have a distribution model already where they have distribution to smoke shops and some C-stores. And they also own 3 or 4 of the largest online sellers that still exist. Vaporify, Vapor. I'm not going to name them because if I get one wrong, then somebody will kill me.
Yep. Don't name names, Jim McDonald.
But that's a company to watch as far as getting tobacco flavors on the market and making something of it. I hope that everybody who has been saying for years that you've got to have flavors to get people to switch to vaping and stuff like that. I hope everybody doesn't just write off tobacco flavors as an effective thing.
Oh, right. Absolutely. I agree.
If you're selling e-liquid, you're going to have to go to work the day after this all shakes out and sell tobacco flavors to people to make a living. And you're going to have to do it for them to help them quit smoking. So you better start thinking more positively about the stuff you've been saying. I can't sell that. It tastes just like cigarettes. First of all, it doesn't.
It can't. They can't possibly recreate
No, it
cigarettes.
doesn't taste like cigarettes.
And that's all, honestly, I mean, at least in my experience, when I first started vaping, that's all anybody wanted was something that tasted like a cigarette or something like a menthol cigarette. And then when they realized they couldn't get that, they went, oh, okay, root beer, watermelon.
Right.
That's right.
Cinnamon buns, right? If I can't get it to taste exactly like a cigarette, then I might as well make it taste something that doesn't remind me of anything like a cigarette.
And also, menthol, you guys, is not that bad. Even if you hate tobacco,
listen,
come
I like
on,
a lot of
menthol.
tobacco flavors.
If I had to, I could probably survive on a menthol vape.
I could
I don't mind
tobacco.
menthol in a pod. I like the Juul menthol, which is mixed with tobacco.
I would
and
vape
menthol.
flavored e-liquid from North Korea before I vape menthol.
Oh, okay. All
Dang.
right then.
Hard stance to take. What's your reasoning there, Matt Culley?
Kim Jong Cloud's e-liquid line.
Kim Jong Clouds.
I'm looking at the black market myself, and I think I might launch my Ants line of liquid that Amelia
You
Howard
should do
did.
it. What was the Jekyll one called?
Jackler juice.
There you go.
And then I also have Durban poison.
Durban poison.
Like Durban poison, the weed.
Durban poison. Holy
Excellent.
crap, that's good.
I just made a box for Durban poison today, and so I really got your joke, Jim. I really got it.
Really
Like,
landed hard. Barbara also suggests a rally in front of FDA headquarters, which, look, I'm telling you, those signs. That would be
I
a
mean,
thing.
I support rallies. The problem is, like, my fear with rallies is, like, how do you really know if people can show up? And especially now with, like, I'm not traveling with COVID. I don't know about anybody else. Like, and the money, like, people are struggling. I just worry. Like, maybe next year things will be looking up.
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah, I don't know.
that's
I personally wouldn't try to rally anytime right now this year because I feel like nobody would show up because we got too many other problems.
There's a lot of ins and outs to that too. I'm not sure you can get a permit to
rally like
FDA.
Oh, really?
So you'd probably have to do it illegally, which would mean you just show up there with no.
We're used to doing illegal
you
stuff.
Might get arrested.
Yeah.
So.
And the media turns it into, a COVID super spreader event, and
that's what we do not want. Okay,
that's what we don't want.
Do not want vaping and super spreader
that's
in the same
with rallies right now. I mean, it's like the COVID shit.
Yeah. And that's all you have to say, even if it's not a super spreader event. You can just say, "Oh, super spreader event." It's like just the little gun in their holster that any organizing they can just go, "Super spreader event." Super spreader
event. When we were interviewing Nick GrimmGreen, he was sniffling, and I'm pretty sure he might have coughed. He's going to be the COVID super spreader.
Yeah, COVID super spreader. Kevin Yum says, the government is distorting the whole market. Can we not go Teddy Roosevelt and file an antitrust? Where's the SBA? There are other agencies besides. Not sure where you're going with that, but where is the SBA? Where is the Small Business Alliance in all of this?
I mean, they put out a letter, right, that said, we really don't think this is a good idea, but I don't really know that they can do much else besides that.
That's it. Small Business Alliance power is very limited.
I don't personally 100%.
I do remember that. They did put out a letter, and they did put
Yeah, they were like, this is not a super great idea, and we're not super... Oh, Jim.
Yeah. Oh, Jim.
I wonder if the lightning struck or something. He warned us that he was having a storm, a bad storm.
Well, see, now this doesn't make any sense.
Oh.
And the FDA fax is over my face.
Don't quote me, though, on the SBA thing. Maybe they have superpowers. I'm not entirely sure. I know they sent a letter. I don't know if they do anything else besides... Jim just messaged me. His power went out as predicted.
Okay, well, thank you, Jim McDonald, for being on the show and for bringing your insight and wisdom.
I think that was his excuse. It's really his bedtime.
Yeah, he's up way past his bedtime. Way past his bedtime. So here's the final question that we're going to pose on this live stream before we wrap it up. Matt Culley, Danielle Jones, where are we going from here? What do we do now? What are we doing? What's the game plan? Nothing's off the table. Let's just brainstorm. I have some ideas.
Danielle, do you want to go first, or you want
to no, somebody else go first. Well, I want to hear what you guys say first.
Danielle, I want to hear what you have to say, Matt.
I've been in this industry not as long as you have, Nick. But
almost, though. Almost. Since like 3 years shy.
2014. And,
Matt and I are the same.
It's a wave you ride, and I'm numb to it. I mean, I had to go on an SSRI because of it. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I did have to go on an SSRI, but not just because of that. Oh, okay. But anyway, it's like it's a roller coaster. And what I always tell people is don't preemptively close shop or don't go back to smoking. Like,
right.
I still think that the savvy types that most of the people that watch this video will probably always be able to find access to the vape products that they want to use.
Yes.
But obviously, the less, if we see vape shops closing down, there's less access for new vapors.
Yep.
They're the types that we need to be concerned about. The granny that, buys a device and some liquid, and she doesn't even get online. She goes to her local vape shop. Like, she's screwed.
Yeah.
If that shop closes down. So I mean, I always have an optimistic side. I do think that FDA is going to pass some stuff, but none of us know, what exactly that's going to be. Pass isn't the right word. It's
approved.
Authorized.
God,
authorized.
Damn it. Authorized. I'm
going to get you.
See, I think my take on this is I agree with you, Matt. It is a roller coaster. And it's a roller coaster that a lot of people, myself included, have been riding hard, just white-knuckled the whole time. Since 2014, and you see 2014, it's like, oh shit, everybody's scared, and then it goes way back up, and then 2016, it's like, oh shit, everybody's scared, and then it goes up, and then it goes way back up, and then Ivali, and oh shit, everybody's scared, and it dies again, and then it comes back up, and this is another oh shit, everybody's scared, and there's been so many oh shit, everybody's scared that every time an oh shit, everybody's scared event happens, it just we lose a little mass, and then we lose a little mass, and then we might grow like. Incrementally, and then we'll lose some mass, and then we'll grow incrementally, and then we'll lose some mass. This can't be another mass loss event. I think there's just too many smokers' lives at stake, personally. I don't want to see this be another mass loss event. I think I'm of the mindset that we stay the course and defend vaping. And
absolutely.
That's all I really care to do.
Something I was going to say earlier, and it applies to this, is that everyone that's a consumer out there needs to know that let's say there's a shop you go to sometimes, and they're selling a liquid that's technically illegal. It's not illegal for you to own it or buy it. It's illegal for that shop to sell it. So keep that in mind, where if it gets to the point where you're having to dabble in gray or black markets, you're not going to be going to jail or anything like that. it's the person that sold it to you is the one that will get the warning letter if they get in trouble.
If they're on FDA's radar, and I mean, and the first step, even then, if they're on FDA's radar, is to get a warning letter. And then you get multiple warning letters, and then you get like 15 warning letters, and then after that, it's like an official warning, and then you get like 9 official warnings, and then after that, it's like it escalates up into.
So no one go back to cigarettes thinking like, I'm not going to break the law.
Yeah.
Also, I'm seeing some weird discussion in chat, and I just want to address something real quick. So somebody keeps asking, is it illegal to sell vapor products? Yes, but this is a complicated question. FDA is the one that is enforcement and in charge of this, right?
Yep.
So if you sell a bottle of e-liquid right now, it is not automatically a felony, and you are not going to jail, and the cops are not going to arrest you. This is under FDA jurisdiction right now. Now, does that mean that states at a later date cannot or have not already amended their laws so that they can then send their state police after you, or that FDA would charge others with enforcement, or that ATF could get involved at some point? And those things could happen. But at this moment right now, it is up to FDA. So, you know what I mean? Like, you're not, somebody in chat saying you're committing a felony. No, you're not. You are violating FDA regulations. FDA will send you warning letters, a series of them. They can issue civil money penalties. They can seize your products. There are things that they can do, but I don't want people going around accusing other people of, committing felonies, because this is more complicated than that.
And people don't understand how many products out there are technically under FDA jurisdiction, but aren't FDA approved, but still get sold every day. Most sexual lubes are technically supposed to get approval from FDA. None of them do. They're illegal to sell them, but the FDA doesn't enforce against it, and they just let them do it. So, there's tons of people breaking FDA rules, not just in our industry all the time. I'm not at all telling people what to do. That's on, if you're a vape shop owner, you need to decide what you're going to do. But from a consumer standpoint, you're not going to get in trouble for buying vapor products.
No.
That's
ridiculous.
No, there's no possession issues here. That's not a thing, right?
Right.
At least not at the current state that I am aware of. That's not a thing anywhere by anyone. We're talking about manufacturers, and we're talking about FDA enforcement. So I don't want to see people running around bullying and scaring other people, because I find that highly inappropriate. You may need to concern yourself with FDA enforcement right now, possibly other law enforcement agencies in the future, but don't be making stuff up.
And look, if you're going to be a total and complete piece of shit and be a narc, all that's going to happen is the FDA is going to go, stop fucking bothering us. We are really busy right now. I'm not sure if you can see how busy we are, so please stop by. I don't care if Dave just sold 5 bottles of e-liquid on his Facebook group.
Right.
We have so much more stuff to worry about than Dave selling his 5 bottles of e-liquid in a Facebook group.
I mean, every dietary supplement that says guaranteed weight loss is technically violating FDA. You know what I mean?
Making health claims.
Right, exactly. And a lot of times, unless it's really egregious, they're still on the shelves, right? So there's, I don't know what you want to call it. There is wiggle room here. This is not, people are not committing felonies right now. That's all I'm saying.
People are committing
it's
felonies.
Most of these things are not crimes per se. They're civil matters.
Right.
So when the FDA punishes you, when they fine you, they call it a civil money penalty.
Yeah.
It's not a criminal penalty. And
it's a fine.
You might be involved in a crime, a state crime or a local crime, by selling something that the FDA hasn't approved. You should certainly talk to a lawyer if you have questions about that. But nobody's going to come in with handcuffs and haul you off for selling flavored e-liquid.
No, it's not going to happen. Jim, the question I posed before your power went out, and everybody's already answered. What do you think is a viable pathway forward for us right now? What do we do? What's the game plan? What do you think?
For consumers or industry?
Either or, consumers or industry. Consumers and industry.
Well, consumers need to find find a pipeline for the products that they want, the products that they want the most, the products they can get by with.
Mm-hmm.
And, they need to find a range of products that they can use to avoid smoking if that's the alternative. And industry needs to, boy, I have a hard time giving advice on that.
You can just say get its shit together. That's an acceptable answer too.
Well, there are people who, J Vapes, which is Amanda Wheeler and her husband's company, have been around since 2011.
Yeah.
That's old for an American e-liquid company. And think of all the money that they've made and poured into trying to help everybody else survive too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I would like everybody who's intending to stay in this, even if it's in the black market, to think about financing some of the work that has to be done to legitimize this and make it a respectable industry.
Yeah.
It's respectable to me as it is. I'm saying to the rest of society.
Right, to the rest of society. Yeah, I get that.
So put some money where your mouth is, or where your income is, if you're making money off of it.
Yeah. Look, hashtag defend vaping, and you're right. There's lots of people that make a lot of money off of vaping.
There's a lot of people who make a little bit of money and spend a lot of it trying to help vaping.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who make a lot of money and don't spend a nickel.
And then buy Lambos.
What color is your Lambo, Nick?
My Toyota is like a ivory color. It's not quite white. It looks dirty all the time. That color.
You got all that YouTube money.
Yeah.
Nick spends all his Lambo money on Star Wars memorabilia.
Yeah. You think Stormtrooper helmets are cheap? Stormtrooper helmets ain't cheap. So I guess I want to say this. This is coming from a source that will remain anonymous, but I reached out and asked for some advice. And this person said, I think borrowing heavily from the cannabis side would benefit, like showing nicotine's health, medicinal nicotine, pointing out that 14% of Americans who smoke are low income, indigenous, LGBTQ, homeless, illicit drug users, or adults with mental health conditions. I think I personally think the social justice issue of this is undeniable, especially if we're talking about raising taxes and having it disproportionately affect low income, indigenous, LGBTQ, homeless, illicit drug users, or people with mental health conditions. It's unreasonable to raise the taxes on them. And so I think this is good advice. I like the idea of borrowing from the cannabis industry and using them as a little bit of a blueprint for what they've done over the last, 40 plus years.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think that if nicotine vaping people had been more eager to unite with the cannabis people earlier, that we'd be in better shape. But
well, I mean, it was a tough sell, that, and it's really only been within, the last 4 years that cannabis has been really legitimized. I mean, it's not even fully legitimized yet. Yeah, I'd say 4 to 5 years before it's been even, scratching the mainstream.
But that's what I remember back then, I had this argument with somebody. I've always been about making cannabis an ally. But back then, people didn't want to be associated with it because they thought it would make us look bad. Now you have a hard time. Now the cannabis people.
Now the cannabis people are like, "You crazy."
Yeah.
So
they don't want to. They don't want to touch us.
The case, but I've run into that a million times myself.
Yeah.
So recreational cannabis has been legal in Colorado and Washington since 2014.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
7 years.
Yeah. But I mean, even now, I don't know. Not that it's legitimized, and
it's got to be made. We have to make this a social issue. You have to talk about, obviously the health stuff, but also the communities that it'll disproportionately affect, which is smokers who are, lower class, minorities, other protected groups. You got, let me give you an example. Most of you guys that know me know that I was never a big fan of Trump. But when Trump was president, I played the game and I made the arguments that were good for Trump at the time.
Yeah.
You know, when we were all on Twitter and talking about votes, that's what worked with Trump. You know, but there's so many diehard righties in the vaping industry, and that's totally cool. I respect that. But you got to now be willing to speak the Democrats' language. And even if you think, oh, I got to be all PC and talk about social justice, suck it up, buddy. We all sucked it up when Trump was in office. It's now time for you to speak their language. That's how you have to play things with a single issue. When it's a single issue thing, and if you could talk to all the cannabis veterans about this, a guy like Ethan Nadelman, he'll go talk to people, right-wing people like Americans for Tax Reform, but also go to progressive groups. You can't, you can't be too political and only play one side, but you got to use the right arguments for each of them.
Yeah, you have to use the right arguments.
100% echo that. I had the same issue. I am technically a registered Democrat, was not a fan of Trump, but I tweeted at him politely and talked about the number of votes and made graphic maps and did the things that Trump cared about, swallowed it, and tried to appeal to what he cared about. As much as you don't like Biden, that is what you need to do now. You don't need to like him. You need to convince him. These are two different things.
Exactly. You don't have to like him. You just have to, you just have to convince him. You just have to let him see reason. You just have to.
And you're not going to convince him by calling him a crazy liberal baby-eating pedophile.
No, that doesn't win anybody.
Heads up.
That doesn't win anybody over on either side.
Like 5 years ago.
Oh, sorry. I'm out of the loop.
Well, you can get synthetic adrenochrome now, so.
It's
out
no,
of,
what?
Yeah, you can get synthetic adrenochrome. You don't need scared babies to sacrifice anymore.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Can you vape it? Can you vape?
You can vape it. Yeah, if you get the VG.
That could be our business opportunity.
VG-based synthetic adrenochrome for the cabals who don't want to kill babies anymore.
I don't know what's happening right now.
Some strawberry custard adrenochrome.
What is an adrenochrome? I don't even know.
Adrenochrome is it's hogwash. It's hogwash.
Okay.
It's what the global elites drink.
Conspiracy theory.
In order to stay young.
Is this some deep state shit? Is that what's happening?
Alex Jones used to always talk about it.
No, I don't.
So anyway, the
FDA is extracted. Real adrenochrome is extracted from a human adrenal gland.
Yeah.
And I don't think it exists actually in the world, but if you remember Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, either the book or the movie, because they're identical, there's the scene where Hunter Thompson is like taking this dropper from this bottle. It's like one of those old Mercurochrome droppers.
Oh, yeah. I remember that scene.
And dripping it into his mouth.
In the flamingo.
That's supposed to be adrenochrome.
Yeah. Well, it's how the elites stay young. Apparently, that's what I've learned.
It's also worth pointing out that I'm not fond of a lot of things that Biden's, well, not a lot, but some things that Biden's done so far. But as far as the FDA stuff goes, this has nothing to do with him. We still all the same.
We don't have an FDA commissioner.
The same people that worked in the Center for Tobacco Products during Trump are still there. So regardless, FDA was always going to do this. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously you need politicians to put pressure on FDA, but we haven't been very good at getting that to happen when we've had Republican or Democratic presidents.
Well, we got one rep that I know of, Julie Casimiro in Rhode Island. I think she's the only one. She's not congressional. Who else?
She's a state rep.
Oh, she's a state rep. Yeah, that's all we have. We got one state rep, Julie Casimiro. That's it.
I think we got a few others. But
yeah, there's been a few state reps that have said nice things.
Yeah. There's been a few state reps that have said nice things, and at least offered, went on to try to turn things around in their state. Like I know Julie went back to Rhode Island and attempted to overturn some bad vape legislation. I don't know how successful she was, but she tried, and that's one. And if we can get more, we can get more. And if we can, then we can't, then we'll keep trying.
That's how it works, though. You get that one person, and then the next time around, she's convinced 2 or 3 others, and then it expands.
Yep.
It grows like that, and that's how it worked with weed.
Yeah.
And
I really enjoy talking to my local politicians. Everyone should do it if you feel confident enough in what you're saying. Like, and making the different arguments for different people is fun. It's kind of like, it's sport trying to sell them on vaping.
Yeah.
And, there was a lady, Missoula in Montana was banning flavors. And I went to the most progressive lady that, I looked at all their records because I didn't know a bunch about them. I found the most progressive lady, and I brought up all the social justice stuff and who it's going to disproportionately affect. And she was the only Democrat that voted against the flavor against the flavor ban. So, I mean, you can turn local politicians faster and easier than, the big guys, because they're less beholden to their donors. They're not, worried about getting a pharma check if they vote against a vaping ban,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
there's less pressure group influence at the very local level.
Yeah.
Well, and it also is a matter of, you don't also win them over by yelling at them either. You can't win a politician over by calling them, corrupt assholes.
Or that they have dementia, or that they're senile, or that, I'm sorry, you guys, that's not going to work. And if you believe
it's not going to work,
that people have dementia, pretend that you don't.
Yeah. Or,
Just,
I mean,
you can vote against them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Vote against it. But if you're trying to convince them that vaping is not, the devil's handiwork, maybe just suspend your reality for a moment and just pretend that you feel that they're a normal person.
Pretend that you're trying to trick them. That's a good way to look at
it. There you go.
Just pretend you're trying to trick them. Like, I'm going to convince this Democrat that vaping is awesome, and here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to trick the fuck out of this Democrat.
The problem is just getting them to care enough to put their neck out for it.
Yeah,
most politicians, whether it be the president all the way down to your state reps, don't give a fuck about vaping.
Right.
They don't care. Like, except besides like the Durbin types, you have a few that like it became their pet project, but most of them don't give a shit. The hard thing is getting them to put, they'll agree with you a lot of times and on the phone or something, but getting them to put their neck out for it is difficult. Like, they don't want to spend the political capital on something like vaping.
So even the ones that have made it their pet project don't know anything about it.
No.
They really are just going off what they've been told by Tobacco Free Kids and the Cancer Action Network and, the lobbyists that they deal with. So the ones who are like tobacco warriors, like Dick Durbin, he doesn't know anything about it either.
No.
He's just, all he's done is spent a good portion of his career being aligned with Matt Myers and accruing the benefits of that by, by trumpeting it over and over again. But he still doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So if you're arguing with these people, you need to make your arguments simple, clear, and polite.
Yep.
I'm never going to get to argue with Dick Durbin, so I feel free to call him an asshole. But
it's hard to do that. I'm going to just say that it's really hard to do that, especially when my temper is so high with FDA and people like Raja Krishnamurthy. It's hard for me to get on Twitter and be polite to Raja Krishnamurthy. It's impossible for me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it matters on Twitter, but if you're like meeting in person with them, you'd have to.
Sure.
Yes.
I'd probably also wear pants, when I meet him, not.
Well, definitely wear pants as opposed to not wearing pants.
If I met him in real life, it would be a much different story other than, but on Twitter, I just lose my temper too much, and I guess I need to watch it.
You're pretty good.
Try to call them. You can, I've talked to Senator Tester staffers.
Mm-hmm.
I met with them once face-to-face when I was in D.C., but then I've talked to the same people on the phone multiple times. And you just got to stay in their ear because, like I said earlier, they just don't care enough. Like, we got vapors in our office. The senator totally understands and he's with you. But, getting them to, like, vote against their party is on something like vaping is very freaking difficult.
Yeah.
Unless you can understand that. If you're let's say a Democratic senator like Tester, and you have a limited number of things you can go against your party on and still get your party's support when the re-election comes around. You can't just be like anti everything in your party and expect to get money to be reelected.
That's why politics is fucked up. If you're too independent, then they're going to just cut you out of the party.
It's pay to play. I think we've established that so far. So ultimately, let's wrap this up. Right now, nothing has been accepted. Am I using the right terminology here?
Authorized.
Authorized. Damn it, I knew it was an A word. As of
Approved.
right now, nothing has been authorized. Nothing's been authorized. Only stuff has been MDO'd off the market.
RTF'd.
Or RTF'd off of the market, correct. If you played by the rules and registered your products, you're on FDA's radar. They're going to start enforcing on those people who registered and didn't file a PMTA. They're going to enforce on people who filed PMTAs and got MDOs or whatever the other one is. And they're going to enforce on people who have PMTAs in but are stagnant because FDA hasn't got to them yet.
No, they're not going to enforce on those people.
They're not enforcing on those people if you have a PMTA in?
No.
If you have a PMTA in and it's pending and waiting, they're not coming after you.
They're not going to enforce it.
They basically said they're going to exercise enforcement discretion.
That's right. And that's why all the big companies have products on the market right now that have not been authorized. So,
right.
Juul, all of them. And they're counting on that enforcement discretion. And if they trust it that much, you can too.
Yeah.
The only thing that technically you have to consider is that if a product has received an MDO or it was never submitted, that's high on their enforcement target list. But there's 1 million products that have received MDOs.
Yes. Well, millions of products.
And so, from my math, there's like 1 million products left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's about 1 million products left that haven't been denied.
Yeah. And yes, IQOS has been authorized. IQOS was, oh, there you go, Daniel Jones. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. IQOS was authorized in 2019. But
that's the only recent, so you've got, if you want to talk about any PMTAs, right? And somebody, I know it's very low nicotine cigarettes just recently, right? 21st Century got it. IQOS, obviously, in 2019 got it. And Swedish something.
Match.
Yeah.
Swedish Match.
There we go. Those are like the most recent, PMTAs. None of which are what we would consider to be a vapor product, an e-cigarette.
Right.
None of them. Heat not burn, IQOS being the closest. But that's all. Nobody else has an authorized PMTA yet.
Authorized. There's no nicotine vapor products authorized PMTAs. We're past the deadline. Is FDA looking for an extension on this? Some sort of legal extension, or are they just what happens now that they've passed this court?
They don't even think that they were beholden to it. They literally were quoted in an article, right? Like, well, we didn't have to finish by
it was just
the deadline.
A suggestion from the judge.
They're still disagreeing that the judge had any jurisdiction to actually give them a concrete date. Now, the ants groups, obviously, if FDA takes too long, the ants groups are going to sue, and it's going to go back to the judge. FDA folded last time, so it's kind of funny that they're, acting tough on this. But then, FDA would have to defend themselves and try to win in court. But eventually we probably will see a lawsuit, because I have a hard time believing that FDA is going to have a decision on everything in the next few months.
Do you think there's going to be lawsuits from the industry side of it against FDA?
Probably.
I mean, I hope so.
I would think so.
I hope so. At this point, it comes down a lot to money, right? Does anybody have any money left to do this? I think you could come up potentially with some good, legitimate arguments, but an argument is nothing if nobody has the money to file a lawsuit. So that's what I'm
wrote
most
in that
worried.
article. Remember that article that was written, and they laid
You're
out
right.
the legalities of it?
You're right. That was a really good
Forbes
article.
magazine, I think.
Yeah, they had a potential legal argument to be made in court based on the fact that all these congressional and politician people have been way too influential, way too opinionated, they've been sticking their nose where it does not belong in the FDA process. And potentially companies could file on that basis because there was something, was it an FTC suit or something where they did the same thing and it worked basically.
Yeah, there's a good argument to be made that I think that's the best argument, that it's become too politicized and there's too much. I mean, the fact that, like, you know, obviously you have to prove it though. I mean, we all know, like, FDA's playing politics somewhat, just like how they're denying all these products before they approve some for optics sake. But being able to prove it in court is another matter.
It's kind of, I feel like we're kind of just waiting for FDA to do the right thing. It's like, FDA, just do the right thing. Do the right thing. Follow the science. You have to approve some of these products. The political pressure that they're putting on FDA, like, you know, we were just talking about, like I mentioned earlier, of this circumventing the regulatory process, wouldn't fly with any other, like, imagine Congress pressuring FDA to quickly approve the vaccine. Just don't do the science. Don't take your time. Just approve it. Just approve it. Constant pressure. Just approve it. Just approve it. It wouldn't make any sense. It would be ridiculous. But it's the same thing that they're doing with vaping. They're like, just deny it. Just deny it. Just deny it. Don't do the science. Just deny it. Mm-hmm. And FDA is playing a political game.
What they're asking for is FDA to create a standard that these products can be authorized and these can't because they have flavors. That's a standard, and FDA has never created such a standard.
Right.
So that would be a betrayal of their promise to judge each product individually based on science. I think they passed that bar already by issuing all these basically blanket denials based on this also standard that the products have to have product-specific evidence of helping adults more than they hurt youth by,
And wouldn't they technically require rulemaking for a standard like that? You'd have to go through.
Seems an awful lot like a rule, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah. I think, and that takes years, right?
Yeah. There's nothing in their PMTA documents saying that you have to do that. They have a lot of other individual specific things that you have to do, and that's not one of them. So I think that's good grounds for a lawsuit right there. Now, again, like Matt says, Danielle said, it's about money. Because, if you're an e-liquid company, especially if you're like a medium-sized one, how much of your life savings do you want to put into this thing that has lost over and over in court?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you've got a certain amount of money socked away.
It's a big ask. It's a big ask, and it's going to take, I don't know. Angel investor, some sort of
we need an angel
knight in shining
advocate.
armor.
We need the George Soros that
We need an angel advocate.
We need some big sugar daddy. That's what we need.
Big sugar daddy. Oh, shit. All right. Well, unless there's any more super chats or anything, let's see. I'm going to check real quick. Looks like no more super chats came in. Anybody have any other questions in the chat? No, please follow GrimmGreen. That's good advice, Addy Tooney. I appreciate that, Addy Tooney. Thank you for putting those links in the chat. All right, you guys. Well, I guess let's go ahead and wrap this up permanently now. Not permanently, just for today. Forever. GrimmGreen, retired. This is my last stream.
My Tuesdays are free now.
Let's shut this down. Thank you guys for being here. I don't want to give any false hope or anything out there to anybody because truly and honestly, the situation is pretty dire. I mean, there's a potential really bad tax that potentially could happen. There's nothing.
Follow the CASAA call to action.
Please, 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 please follow the CASAA call to action. If you've never done a CASAA call to action before, make this the first and most important one that you've literally ever done, ever. I'll never forget back in 2016, we got 1 million people to sign that petition. You remember that, Matt?
Yep.
We got 1 million people to sign that petition, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Wow.
And it took it took, maybe it wasn't 1 million, maybe it was only 500,000 or something, but it was a ridiculous number.
I forget the number, but it was really freaking high.
It was really freaking high, and it took every YouTuber hammering it in like every video, every live stream, every tweet. Like there was so much awareness that we got like 500,000 people, and I think we could get huge numbers again. And I think we need to put those huge numbers into testimonials and the right to vape testimonial. Just realize that vaping is way bigger than the market that's happening inside the United States. The United States is, whatever, a big superpower country. So things that happen here regulatorily kind of echo a little bit and ripple out a little bit into the world. But vaping is a worldwide movement. It's a worldwide community, and what we're seeing is a little version of it, happening in the United States. But we have to remember that this is a global community, and we have vapors, millions of vapors worldwide that are all, or I'd like to think that the vast majority of them are willing to stand up for what's right and, get out there like I do and say, I think everybody should get to quit smoking the way that I got to quit smoking, and I'm not going to stop until everybody gets to. So you can put that in your pipe, Dick Durbin. And that's all I have to say about that. So there we go. Appreciate you guys coming out. If there's anything else you wanted to say or pimp, Jim McDonald, Vaping 360, where can people find you? You want people to follow you on Twitter or not?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter.
Yeah, follow him on Twitter. I'll post his Twitter down in the description. You've all read Jim McDonald's work in Vaping 360. I've read it to you, I think, line for line in these very live streams. So thank you, Jim McDonald, for all of your hard work. And look forward to continuing to fight the good fight with you. Matt, appreciate you, pimp.
Appreciate you. So you just said all these fantastic things about Jim, and he totally deserves it. We all love Jim, but that's all you have to say about me.
I appreciate you, pimp. No, look, I've known you for a real long time, and I know that you're smart, and I appreciate you coming on here. I know you're down for the cause. Every time I talk to you, I learn something that I didn't know before, or I'm enlightened a little bit more than I was before. So I appreciate you and the wisdom that you bring to this live stream, Matt.
Thank you.
Wow.
I feel
I mean, wow.
He delivered.
That was
He
good.
delivered.
I asked for a compliment, and it just feels gross now,
Matt's
I
like,
think
I
you
don't
went
want
a
it.
little overboard.
Okay.
I appreciate the kind words, though.
Yes.
You
Well,
laid it on.
I do mean it all. I don't think we would have as half of awesome as a vape industry and community without people like Matt, without people like Danielle, without people like Jim McDonald. I think you guys are staples in this vape scene, and I appreciate your hard work. And
But we don't have to go to the CASAA meeting tomorrow, right?
We're all on the same team.
Hey!
Look,
you are
I'm
required
not here for that.
to
That's
attend
neither
my
here nor
board
there.
meeting.
That's
My
neither here nor
HOA
there.
meeting is tomorrow, but I'm not. I'm gonna go to the CASAA meeting instead.
Yeah, you are. Do you see what I have to deal with? It's like herding cats, okay?
I canceled last week because of my fantasy football draft, so
and I
gotta go-
rescheduled for
Fantasy
you.
football draft? Vaping's doomed.
Dude, it's a big thing. I've been doing that fantasy football league for longer than I've been vaping. 11 years I've been in the same league. I can't miss it. It's like
We
You gotta-
rescheduled just
I don't
for
even know
him,
What
okay?
those sentences
We did.
mean. I get that.
We
He is the secretary. No one would take notes, so...
we put vape advocacy on hold for a week for my fantasy football league.
Yeah, look, nothing's going to
Look
change
what
in a
happened.
week. Yeah, what's going to
Yeah,
happen
look
in
what
a
happened.
week? Millions of products ripped off the market from marketing denial orders. from
Jeez,
FDA.
Matt.
By the way, how'd your fantasy football team do, Matt?
I lost the first game.
Unbelievable.
We didn't put anything on
These are
hold.
vape
It's
advocates,
just,
everybody.
if people
No.
understand we still did stuff.
Yes.
Well, I sure do appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. Obviously, the fight's not over. I'm not quite sure how to end this. Let's keep going. And ultimately, we're not going to know until we know. And right now, we don't know. We don't know. So from all of us here at the TBN headquarters studios in Burbank, California, I'm going to say goodbye. I don't have an entry or an exit bumper, so we can just wave and say goodbye like the professional stream that we are. Bye, everybody. Bye. Keep fighting the good
Bye.
fight. Bye.